So here's what you've all been waiting for. Today we are making truffles. I started off with 60% cacao chocolate chips. These are just small chocolate chips that I used. They were all the same size, so they were just small discs. Now I'm just blending those up in the food processor really quick here. Now the point of this is to get the granules super fine, so this will make the melting process easier for the chocolate, as well as just make all the pieces melt equally and be so the truffles are as smooth as possible. So here you can see we are just finishing up the blending, and our little bits of chocolate come out almost looking a little bit like sand, or kind of like dirt, honestly. So it's just very fine little crumbs that all the chocolate has come into, and this will make melting the chocolate easy and make the truffles uber smooth. So now I'm just taking 5 eggs. I'm cracking those really quick here. So I am just separating the yolks from the whites. The whites I'm putting in a bowl, and the yolks I am putting into my saucepan. So I'm just separating those. And what we're going to do is we're going to cook the eggs with the yolks, I'm sorry, with a cup of whipping cream. And what this is going to do is prevent salmonella. So we just need to cook the eggs for either 5 minutes at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or for 1 minute at 160. So mine, I believe, was probably around 150 for a few minutes. And the reason to do this is, again, to just not get salmonella. And so when I took the eggs and the heavy whipping cream and I started to stir those together, as soon as I felt thickening, I took those off because I don't want to make scrambled eggs. I just want to cook out the possibility of salmonella. So you will see that demonstrated here in just a few minutes. So here I'm just constantly stirring that whipping cream and 5 egg yolk mixture, just to make sure that the yolks do not and nothing sticks to the bottom, that we don't start making scrambled eggs on accident. We just want to get the salmonella out of the eggs, and I'm using 1/4 cup of heavy cream here and 5 large egg yolks. And for my chocolate, I used about 16 ounces of my 60% dark chocolate. So I didn't mix chocolate and regular semi-sweet. So here I just took it off the burner now. I'm just letting that come off the burner so it stops the cooking process. And now I'm adding the butter. Unfortunately, we did not have butter at my house, which I came to find out literally as I was making this, which was disappointing. So I used margarine. I really don't think it messed it up too much, per se. So I just took 4 tablespoons of butter and added that to the egg yolk and heavy cream mixture, and I'm just mixing that up until the butter melts here. And the reason we're adding the butter is, one, just because butter makes everything better, and two, this also may help with our seizing, because seizing is caused by a small amount of moisture that sticks to the dry particles. And as we all know, butter is not 100% fat. It does contain quite a bit of water in it, and margarine, I think, does as well, and so do our eggs, our whipping cream. Everything has a little bit of water in it. Everything, it has some moisture in it, and we're adding all this to prevent seizing, because we don't want all the dry particles just sticking to a few moisture parts. So we're adding and to prevent this seizing, we're adding a tablespoon of liquid for every 2 ounces of chocolate. So that's what all this liquid is. Now, because my family likes to spice things up, and my mom loves peanut butter and requested this. I added a tablespoon of peanut butter too. I think this made the truffles a little bit creamier, added a little bit more of that nutty taste into the truffles, and overall just made them better. It wasn't called for in the recipe, I just thought it would taste good. So here we're just mixing that up. I also Now here I have separated out into two different containers. I'm separating the heavy cream, egg yolk, and butter mixture into two different containers so we can test out what it's like with and without the liquor. So I'm just adding half to the big orange bowl and keeping the other half in my big mixing bowl. So now I'm just adding half of our crushed chocolate chips into one bowl and half into the other. And so we're going to start melting these chips with our hot liquid that we have. So we got that melted. Now into the other bowl we are adding um, an eighth of a cup of liquor, and I used Bailey's almond. It's like almond milk, so instead of just plain Irish cream, it's like almond cream kind of. It's made out of almond milk. It's vegan, basically, is the only difference. So we added that to the mixture, and I think this alcohol did have a lot to do with the outcome of the truffles. So now I'm taking the truffles out of the freezer. When I put them in, the temperature before I cooled them, the first one was with the without the bay leaves was 92.5 degrees before going into the refrigerator, and the one with bay leaves had the temperature was 90.2 degrees. And then I left those in the fridge for 40 minutes. When I originally took out the mixture that did not have any alcohol in it, it was 70.3 degrees in the middle. So I scooped out a couple truffles, and then I was like, I can't scoop these out because the chocolate's still too hot and it was too liquidy. So what did I end up doing is I put them back in for about 10 minutes, and this cooled it down to where I could scoop it out. So the ones without Bailey's in it ended up being in the fridge for about 50 minutes total. I also think this is because um, the one without Bailey's was in a different type of container, and so it was a lot thicker in the middle, whereas the one with Bailey's, it was a shallower container that the chocolate could kind of spread out more in. And so when I took out the one without Bailey's for the second time, the temperature went down to 55.6 degrees. And then, so here I'm just scooping out the one that does not have Bailey's. And these ended up tasting really, really good. I believe the ones without Bailey's were definitely a little bit more bitter. They were not quite as sweet. They had that more nutty flavor. Again, I added the peanut butter to both. The peanut butter was in both, but I think it was much more. You could pick that flavor up more in the one without Bailey's. But these were not as creamy, unfortunately. They were stiffer for some reason. I believe the alcohol, because alcohol doesn't really freeze, or it has a much lower freezing point than water. Um, the alcohol doesn't get as cold in the refrigerator as just the normal one with chocolate would. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Now, since I scooped them all out with a cookie scoop, I have to roll them. So what I did is I coated my hands in cocoa powder that has no sweetness to it at all, and then I rolled them up in it. And this was good because my hands weren't disgusting and they rolled really easily. However, it did make the truffles bitter on the outside, and the flavor is a little bit overpowering. So I kind of wish I wouldn't have done that. At the time, it seemed like a really good idea. So that was my one thing that I wish I would not have done. Now, the truffles with Bailey's in it, they were definitely more, had that melt in your mouth flavor. They were honestly, they were better. The ones with Bailey's were better. They were very creamy, very smooth. They had a little bit more of that fruity component as well as the vanilla component. Again, very creamy and sweet. And I believe this is all from the Bailey's, because Bailey's, as you know, is sweet, creamy. It has an ice cream flavor, but it kind of has that vanilla flavor as well. They were not nearly as bitter as the other ones. They were really, really good. Super creamy, really delicious. So here I'm just finishing up the other truffles, and after I finished rolling all of these, I put them in the freezer for a little bit just to let them harden up a bit, and I think that definitely made the consistency perfect. And then I ended up, they're in my fridge right now in mason jars, so I definitely have been keeping them cold to make them extra good. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video today.